Let's see what kind of trouble we can get into today. Working with some new settings, new camera, new trouble, new hamsters, and it's Sunday. Didn't get any snow, of course. Why would the snow gods appease me? Never. But I've got a few topics today. I actually changed the topic of the stream, and that is, are we asking the right questions in our aquariums? So often in the chat and just talking with people, I can tell that they're like attacking the problem from the wrong way. And what that what I've learned is that's half of the battle or more. Is are we even asking the right question? I'm solving for something that might be incorrect. And so I know I struggle with that, or I did struggle, still am working on it. And so I've taken a couple questions that the we're gonna work through them, I guess. That's what we're gonna do, and hopefully everybody will kind of maybe learn something, maybe about the exact problem, maybe going, hey, I have that problem too, or maybe like, wait, well, I got a problem going on. Am I thinking about it from the right angle? So, all right, these ones. First one I've got up. I don't remember who asked it, but cherry shrimp all died. They swapped out all their plants in their tank and they bought new shrimp. Let me back up. I'm explaining the story wrong. They swapped out a bunch of plants, maybe all of them, I don't know. A bunch of plants got swapped out in their tank, and then all of their cherry shrimp died. They've done a bunch of water changes. They've bought new shrimp. They died. They've tested everything. I've done all the things, right? And so the first thing I start with is when you've had success with something and then now you're not, you know it's at least achievable. And what I mean by that is if this tank was producing cherry shrimp and working, you know your skill set and whatever, it's at least achievable. Whereas if you've never kept shrimp before, you could kill them and maybe it's you that's the problem, right? So we at least know that this tank at one time could do it, right? And so the question is, how do I fix it? And I think that's the wrong question to ask. I think the right question, or one question I might ask is, what have I done to break what was working? If you've ever been in tech before, maybe you work on computers or, you're solving problems. A lot of times you become um, the computer guy at your office, even if you're not the tech person, because you can solve a problem. And so one of the biggest things you learn is, what did we change? This worked yesterday, it's not working today. Did you click on a setting? Did you do something? And we just need to work through that. So I think we need to ask, what did we change? We swapped out all the plants. So that's where I would start. I would go, okay, what are the things that could happen? We could put new plants in and maybe they come in with some chemical that kills everything, right? They could swap out a bunch of plants and disrupt the cycle, or disrupt not the cycle, the balance of the tank, right? If the plants, let's say, were eating the lion's share of waste and converting it and doing its job, and then we rip that out, we put new plants in, it takes at least a week, if not two, to start replacing that. Now, we could have taken out plants this big and put in plants this small. Maybe it's a one-to-one swap. We don't have all the information there, but we know there's been a big disruption, right? And so that's where I think the problem started and amplifies. Now, what does that amplify? What do you mean amplifies? Well, we kind of went into a problem, and I want to take this back to like computers. You went to print today, it won't print, right? I printed yesterday, just printed yesterday, or printed earlier before lunch. What's going on? So then you start messing with settings, right? You change this, let me update the driver, let me try this, let me try the old printer, let me do this, let me do that. Pretty soon, you're like 5 or 6 steps deep, right? 5 or 6 steps deep into a problem that is now way harder to solve. And that's what happened here with these cherry shrimp. We swapped out a bunch of plants. Then we did a ton of water changes, and we're chasing things. And what we know about fish and aquariums really is that they like stability, especially shrimp. Shrimp thrive in stability. And so when we go with one major change, you get that die off, change a bunch of water, bring in new shrimp. They're not used to that. They die, change a bunch of water. We're in a cycle now of nothing is stable. And so really what we need to do is step back and go, okay, what was working? Working was plants were growing, shrimp were breeding, I was feeding, I had this schedule. When you start changing those things, that's where you get results you can't predict. And so the first thing I do when I suffer a big setback, think about what did I do that was different and how do I get back to where it was? And sometimes I don't like the answer of like, yeah, I hadn't gravel vaxed in like 2 years. I just did a thorough cleaning. Oh, it's probably just going to take time. Maybe I'm 6 months away from getting back to a filled substrate that's going to harbor infusoria and microcrustaceans and other little organisms that these are going to help cohabitate with the shrimp. And I just have to wait, right? But I don't think there is the answer that we're all searching for in that scenario of like, okay, but what's the thing so I can go, hey, I'm going to add this. Like, yep, we just put a little bit of this in, and now I can add shrimp next week. Chances are we need to let those plants grow. We probably need to let the substrate settle back down. Every plant you lifted out really brought, like, if you don't know this, substrate stratifies, and that's a big word for it gets layers. And so maybe the first little layer is converting ammonia and stuff for you and doing everything you want. But then that second layer has less oxygen, and maybe it's like a great layer for fish poop and plant roots. Then you get down to another layer, and that there's no oxygen getting down there, and that's converting nitrates, right? Consuming them. But we kind of want plants to do that. You could get some gases building up. Like there's things going on to each layer of this substrate. And when we take a plant out, wherever those roots were, and sometimes if you're ever taking out a big plant, they go the whole tank. But you're basically mixing it up, right? So you might be taking outside, you have this compact substrate, you dig it up, and when you put it back, it's more fluffy. It's like you have more than when you started with, and it's different. And when you step on it, it compresses, and it gets muddy faster. We've changed the properties of that ground. And that can happen in our aquarium too. Especially when we have organisms that want to live on that and work inside of that, breed inside of that. We need plants to utilize that. So what did we change? How do we get back to before the change? That's what I would be focusing on, and knowing it's a slow road and probably not very quick. Even though we achieve success, usually in our lives, it's easier to achieve success again, but it's not instant, right? If I built my first home and it took me 4 years, maybe when I build a second home, it takes me 2 years, but it's not like, well, I could bang that out in a month. It's still a long process. You might get better at it each time. And that's eventually you do it enough and you own a store. I've killed so many shrimp. I've done so many things that I can advise other people on how to dodge the problems that I've been having. That's what I do. What sort of plant dip would I recommend for snails? I love snails, but want to control which ones in which tank and want to move plants around. I will die on this hill that I don't think we should ever be dipping plants in anything. Now, there's a lot of people who'll disagree. That's fine. We all have opinions. Great. I love tacos. You love cheeseburgers. It's fine. Why don't I want to dip plants in anything? I don't want to dip plants in anything because you get the good and the bad. The good, the question we're asking, right, is, well, could I control the snails going in? And the answer is, a little bit, yeah. Unfortunately, you're also going to kill some of the plant. You might kill some algae. Hey, that might be a good thing for you, right? But you're weakening plant structures. And so imagine, the way I think about something like this, imagine that dipping a plant in any solution, whether it's I do it in bleach, I do it in alum, I do it in salt water, which don't do it in salt water, that's dumb. Or some other dip, right? Imagine that it lowers plant health by, just pick a number and say like 10%. 10%, it's going to reduce the quality by 10%. Now, if the plant is fully healthy, it can take that no problem. It's going to go, oh, we're at 90%, I'll bounce back from that. But what if that plant is actually like 50, 60, 70%, somewhere in there? Like maybe it just got trimmed, got bundled up, got shipped to you, right? Maybe it's in a potted plant, it got shipped to you and it was pretty cold. Maybe got a little bit of a delay. Maybe something else going on. Each one of those are your odds, right? So if you had 100% and you dip it, you're at 90%. 90% of the time it's going to work. No problem. You love that, right? But if you were at 60% because there was a delay, like, USPS stole 20% from me, or I bought a cheaper plant that was less grown, or I bought a more finicky plant, or I'm buying something above my comfort zone, right? If I go and I buy a very high-end, difficult, like an umbrella plant to grow a plant maybe, because of my skill level, I'm already at 50 or 60%, right? And then I'm going to dip it, now at 40%. Like my odds are just getting worse. And unfortunately, what happens a lot on the internet is we don't consider other people's skill level, right? And so I see it all the time because I target and I try to help people that are brand new to plants. So they're coming in at a huge disadvantage. We're talking people that can't even keep Java Fern, Anubias, Cryptocorns alive. Like some of the ones like just add water should grow. So if they're already down at like, they got a 70% handicap, and then they're going, okay, well, yeah, I got some algae last time. I'm going to use a dip. Now I'm down to, I got a 20% chance going to make it, right? And there could be other factors like you got a really poor light, or you're using the wrong kind of fertilizer, or you've got a fish that likes to chew on stuff. We have that a lot. Sometimes you get one angelfish. Sometimes you got, some mollies or some platies or something being a little rough with your dwarf baby tears. And so it's all this big game of odds. And that's why I don't recommend dips. Now, not to mention the fact that you're going to dip this plant to get rid of snails. You would have to use something so harsh to actually get rid of the eggs. The egg sacs are built by nature to be protected from stuff like that. So you could bleach or you could alum dip, and you could definitely look, I killed the adult snails, right? The problem becomes once those snail eggs hatch out, you just have more. And so then you have to increase the dosage or the length of time and all of these things to get to a point where you might get rid of that. Or, right? You let these snail eggs hatch out, and you want to sort them out because you want to pick what snail goes where, right? You could, we've got 22 snails that came up. Great. Let me move them or feed them or buy a fish like a puffer to take care of them or something like that. All of those options don't reduce the effect of the plant. Like the chances you're going to have a good result. So that's why I go to die on that hill, because one, I think snails are actually incredibly helpful, and you agree too, which is great. I want these ones here, I want those ones there. I get it. But I think it's leading people astray, and it's one thing. What part of information is it? Dissemination, is that the right word? I don't even know if that's the right word. But taking knowledge that I've learned and passing it on to other people, one of the most important aspects of that is making sure you're giving it at the right time, right? If you're just a math wizard and you can do the highest, most complex problems in the world, you don't go teach that to a second grader, right? You wait till you get to calculus or higher, right? And that's when you would start going to these advanced theories. And that's what's missing is there's no laid out path when it comes to aquariums, right? You just go, hey, look, it's a math wizard over there. They do this thing. I bet if I do that thing, I'll be a math wizard. And so you might see a store or someone, a wholesaler or a farm, and maybe they're dipping, right? But they also might be like, oh, look at this. This is a 40-year veteran master aquatic horticulturist. Their skill level plus their professional $10 million facility plus this puts them at 98% chance of survival. They dip that plant, right? Now they're at 88% chance. And they're willing to take that knowing we don't want some of these things to spread. But even still, even the masters don't do that. We still have azolla and duckweed and everything all around all the farms. It's impossible. And even like Dean, the only way Dean stays snail free, I don't think the average person is willing to do it. Oh, he bought a plant. Oh, it stayed in quarantine for 9 months in a bucket and looked terrible, and then moves it onto a tank, right? That I don't think most of us are willing to do. I think most of us are way more, I can't think of the word right now, but impulsive. That's what I was looking for. Impulsive, like I bought a plant. I want to see it. I want to grow it. And Dean is just the opposite of that. He'll take that long road forever. And not everyone's willing to do that. So I don't think there's a shortcuts, and I don't think the shortcut works as well as people think it does. And also, just because a high-end aquascape, like let's say Oliver Lucanus comes in and he goes, hey, I dipped my plants and I did this and I had to get ready for the competition because I was scaping on Saturday, and if there were snails in there, I'd get demerits. That's entirely different than some snails hatched out in my home aquarium. I picked them out, I moved on, and everything was good. So there you go. Well, just let me mess with some settings on the fly. YouTube says a little unhappy, and I might be able to make it happier. Nope, it won't let me. It's locked in for the stream, so hopefully it's good enough. Yeah, Aquariumcoop outlines a process called reverse respiration that kills snails and algae but benefits plants. A 12-hour soak in seltzer water. Yeah, I'll be 100% honest. I haven't read through it. I don't think anybody in my company's read through it because it's literally like 100 pages long. Not 100, but it's so long that I don't even have time to parse it and then test it. So maybe that is an outlet. I can see without even reading into it, like seltzer water, high CO2, in theory. I still would wonder, would it actually kill snail eggs? And it's probably documented in that document. It's a very long read though. Check it out on the forum, and people have a call to action to like, hey, you should teach this and you should promote this more. And I only teach and promote from experience, so I would have to replicate that over the course of a year or two, and then I would come out and publicly endorse or not. But there's too many what if this happened, what if that happened, and in my position, what about this seltzer, what about that seltzer, what about this, what about that, I can't get this, what about that, and not being able to answer those questions is just a nightmare for Candy. So you could definitely go and read through that if you wanted, but I still maintain we're keeping ecosystems. Let those snails in, take them out if you want. They're going to do more good than harm. So often I see tanks that that need a little bit of love, and really they just need snails. Slow mode is not on. That's right, Candy. I turned it off earlier. I am aware. Let's see here. Yeah, so many pages of intense testing on that system. Yeah. I mean, the problem is, I guess I don't know that, but just because people can replicate a system doesn't mean it's good for everybody. Many things in the world work that way. And so, a good example would be pressurized CO2. It's proven it works really well for plants. It's great. And yet, 99% of people that buy one will struggle and fail with it because it's a very difficult concept. In fact, I had a moderator of a Facebook group say, they showed me their tank, they got a lot of algae problems, and they're like, I'm going to buy CO2 that'll fix it. And I couldn't say faster, that will literally not help you at all. That'll be a waste of $200+ and won't get you any closer to where you're wanting to go. It's not that it's not beneficial. It's that you have to understand some building blocks before you get there. There's no just get to the end and make it easy, right? So, And with that, that forum article, what you guys won't even know is, well, of the 50,000 people that looked at it, 2,000 people just added the saltwater straight to their aquarium and killed all their fish. And you're like, people don't do that. It's like, have you witnessed the public? People read between the lines and skip stuff so much. It happens every day. Every day. Like, a great example, I think, of this is, how often do we see, right? Is Easy Green shrimp and snail safe? Yet it's on the bottle. It's bolded on the website. And it's still the number one asked question all the time. When we do paid ads on it, still number one question all the time. And so you got to be careful when you make recommendations. And that's so often why I try not to make new recommendations, because I really have to vet things and go, how is the person that's with a learning disability going to mess this up? I need to try and make sure they're not going to kill all their fish, because the end result always falls back onto us. Like, hey, you recommended we do that. Like, well, we recommended you do it right. Well, you should have let me know I was going to do it incorrectly. And you got to remember, there's people out there putting air pumps into water. There's people putting air stones into water with no air pump going, what do? Not making air, right? And so when you're dealing with things, that's why we're so scared of heaters. Heaters done incorrectly kill fish, right? When you're electricity, all of these things, when you're dealing with these kinds of things, you need to cover, we have to tell people, don't squirt Easy Green in your own eyes, right? It's just a thing. So, but yeah, read through all that. I got to be honest, I haven't had a chance to read through it all because it is a very long read, but it looks promising, which is good. But whether I'll, spend the next 2 years making sure that I think it's safe to talk to people about, I don't know. I got a lot of stuff to do. So, and again, I would say, are we even asking the right question? I don't want to get rid of snails. I literally add snails to every aquarium because they're beneficial. All right, the next one was, a person wants to add iron and carbon to tanks because they're growing algae. Another person wanted to turn down lights because they're growing algae. Algae, this, in my opinion, this is a very simple concept of, like, if there's an imbalance, we balance it and it goes away. But in general, for some reason, the human brain defaults to, let's take away or let's add, instead of, maybe I'm not adding things in the right thing, right proportions or right steps, right? And so when we have a bunch of algae, what's the right question? Is the right question, what can I add? Is it, what can I take away? I think the right question is, what needs to change? What have I been doing that has gotten me to here? And so in almost all of these things where people have algae, the first thing I go is, great, what algae do you have? And 50% of the time, they misdiagnose it. This one in particular that I was speaking about was, I've got green spot algae. I was like, oh, let me see a picture. That is not green spot algae. And so identifying algae could be important, but also just identifying, how did we get here? And what are some steps we can get away from this, right? And so usually the first thing I'm always recommending to people, because it's the easiest quick win, I think. Doesn't solve it, but it feels like we're making headway, right? Let's get some appropriate algae eaters for the type of algae you have. Because even if we fix how we got there, we need something to clean up the mess, right? So if I identify that, oh, because I had all my nieces and nephews play up here, it's a train wreck, there's a Kool-Aid stain on the ground, this thing got tipped over, all of that. Even if I identify, how do I fix that? Okay, we don't let them up here. We still need something to clean up the problem. And so I start with, well, let's start with something to clean up, and then we'll make sure it's not happening more. And so in this person's case, they had a bunch of algae. It kind of looks like a moss ball, cladophora algae. One of my favorite ways to clean that up is actually to use flagfish. You can use Siamese algae eaters. You could use way too many amount of shrimp that you can't afford and starve them and starve the rest of your tank. You can use H2O2, which is hydrogen peroxide, on some of it. But my recommendation to them was, let's get 3 flagfish. I'm going to help you get through this over the course of a month. My hope is that they'll actually take pictures and we can document this, and so I can help others. Get these fish, get them starting to work on it. We can then start learning the building blocks of, do you or don't you need CO2? They don't. Do they or don't they need to be adding liquid carbon? They don't. Do they need to be adding iron? They don't. And so already I'm trying to talk them out of, like, don't spend this $250. Let's go spend $20 and get $20 worth of flagfish. Might be 3 of them. That's going to help a lot. And then let's use the tools you already have, the fertilizers, and go, okay, we've got light, we've got fertilizer. Let's start adjusting to get it to where they're roughly, and maybe part of the problem is I don't get enough information out to enough people often enough. But when we're trying to seek balance, have we been asking the right question? I probably haven't been, because people ask, how do I balance my aquarium? But the balance, and I always say it's a balance between light and nutrients. But really, if I ask the right question, that doesn't solve the problem for the customer. I need to ask, what doesn't the customer know? The customer doesn't know what would a balance between nutrients and light look like. That would look like that you put some fertilizer in, let's say it's Mondays, right? And you test your water on Mondays before that. So maybe at noon, you test your water. It has these parameters. You dose your fertilizer. 1 week later, you test your water. If it was the exact same as the week before, you would be in perfect balance. Now, it's unlikely that the average home hobbyist of varying skill levels are going to achieve perfect balance. It's very, very difficult because plants are growing. And so maybe they're this tall this week, but in 2 weeks they're this tall, right? And so you have to constantly be changing the amount of fertilizers you would dose every week. This is assuming your light is on a timer and you're not playing with it. So at least that's constant, right? Because if you have a light that turns on and off at different times every day, even by a few minutes, that's going to add a variable. Your plants are growing, that adds a variable. Dosing the fertilizers, if you're not consistent, that's another variable. And so if you've done math, we'll go back to math today. This week is math week. Last week was cheeseburger week. If we go back to math, if all of the things we need to solve for are variables and nothing is a constant, right? So if it's x minus y plus z equals a, if you don't have any of them, you can't solve it. Now, there's probably some math wizards be like, well, you can actually solve it and go, it will be this, and once we figure out one of them, it would then do it. Yes. But you need at least one constant. Oh, this much light. And now I've got a few other variables. But if you can solve for the variables and plug them in, I have this much light, right? It's on for this long, it's this bright, and I put in this much fertilizer, and I test this. Now we only have to solve, what's this minus this plus this equals x? We're only solving for one variable. That's what we're trying to get to. So the good news is when you introduce some algae eaters of the right type of algae, right? A lot of people will have algae eaters. They'll say, I have a plecostomus. And I go, great. It won't eat hair algae, won't eat cladophora algae, won't eat green spot algae. It only eats flat algae. It's like diatom brown and green algae on glass and rock and wood, flat surfaces. Same with reticulated hillstream loaches. Same with autosynclus, right? Then you get to hair algae. So you got hair algae, you got staghorn algae, you got cladophora algae. There's probably another one off the top of my head I can't think of. Siamese algae eaters, flagfish, amano shrimp, mollies, platies, other livebearers, things that have the mouth to pull. They have to pull the hair algae off, right? Different sets. Green spot algae. The only thing that I know of that actively eats it are nerite snails, right? Now you might have blue-green algae. I don't know of anything that eats that. That would actually be a bacteria, and we use a med for that. And a lot of times when people get algae outbreaks, they're going to have a few of these going on. And so, might be like, yeah, go get yourself 2 nerite snails, go get yourself 3 Florida flagfish, and we're going to need a dose of some erythromycin to get rid of the blue-green algae. So what are the right steps? I would say, well, let's start by take that rock out and scrub it with a toothbrush. Same with that piece of wood, same with this thing. Get the decorations fairly cleaner. Then we're going to dose some maricin, which maricin is erythromycin. They're the same ingredient. Let that sit for a week. Great. What does your water look like? Still testing good. Okay, good. Now go get yourself a couple of snails. Put them in. Test the water a week later. It's been 2 weeks. Still looking good. Great. Go get yourself some flagfish. Add those in. Each time you add a thing, they're changing the ecosystem, right? So the erythromycin, we technically could have, we did. We killed bacteria. We killed some bad bacteria. We could possibly kill some good bacteria too, a little bit. That's going to, when we kill that bad bacteria, all the blue-green algae, it's going to make ammonia. That ammonia has got to get eaten by other bacteria or plants, get consumed, right? Then we put in some nerite snails. The nerite snails are eating green spot algae and some other algae. Those algae were consuming ammonia for you. And so now we're taking something that was good, algae is good, killing it off, turning into waste, bad. But then the plants will hopefully, infiltration will take care of it. We make sure that's going well. Now let's add some lawnmowers, the flagfish. We get those flagfish in there. Now they're mowing the lawn down. Chomp, 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 chomp. They poop it out. We've got waste. Hopefully the filtration and the plants are handling that waste. We keep testing. Great. Looking good. Winning the war slowly. It's my goal to win an algae war over 4 to 6 weeks. So you've got enough time for the tank to actually make adjustments. Because when you come in and you just go, well, I just added a bunch of algae fix and nuked the whole tank, the tank is in absolute disarray and falling apart. You're going to take 4 to 6 weeks just to get some kind of balance back. You get high ammonia spikes. That's why when you read things like Algae Fix, it says, hey, make sure you're doing lots of water changes to fight off the ammonia spikes. And that's just in general not good when you're trying to maintain an ecosystem and build something that's going to last and work for a long time. So I do like to point out that people can complain about everything. They complain slow mode's on. Now we have other people, turn slow mode back on, moving too fast. It's an impossible situation, unfortunately. Yeah. If I can turn it back on a couple buttons, I will. And then we'll have people complain that, hey, it got turned back on. Here we go. Back on. Are we chilling now? I feel chill. Is Hydra bad in a breeder box with days-old pleco fry? I feel like it would be. I don't know that for a fact. I've never personally seen, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen, I haven't personally seen, I'm big on 2 eyes, gotta see it. I've never seen Hydra stinging fry and having negative effects. That being said, if that was my setup, I would take like a little scrubby pad and go, yeah, these Hydra, they're not living in here. I don't want to take the chance. And a breeder box should take you about 42 seconds to go, all right, get out of there. That's how I would do it. But I wouldn't go to a chemical measure or anything like that. I would just avoid it because I don't think it's going to help. And a lot of that asking the right question for me is it helping? I'm not sure this is helping. So I could get rid of that. I can't be sure that getting rid of it's helping either. But that's what I would do. I love my new co-op light. I got an algae bloom in the tank right now, but I started balancing the light and the nutrients. Yeah, if it's a green water bloom, those ones are one of the hardest ones to balance. One angle is a complete blackout on the tank for like 7 to 10 days, which is hard on the plants because they're not getting any light for 7 to 10 days. You can do it. It's like shipping plants, right? They've got a better chance than shipping because they're already rooted and they're healthy and stuff, or should be. So one way is blackout 7 to 10 days, sometimes even as much as 2 weeks. And the other way is UV sterilizer. That's the method I usually go with because I don't have to change any of my light settings or anything like that. I just go, oh, okay, I gotta. And green water is one that, maybe you have a spike of ammonia, right? You get an excess nutrients. Maybe a double dose. Maybe you were on vacation, someone fed more than normal. Maybe you had a fish die off, or maybe you just tried a new food. Whatever it is. The green water is one that once it gets started, it replicates so easy and sticks around. But once you kind of kill it off, it typically stays gone as long as you've changed what made it happen. Also know that you don't really want a big die-off. So again, I wouldn't use algae fix because all that green water becomes dead. And when it's dead, it's rotting, uses up oxygen and creates waste. So yeah, I would keep dialing it in, and that's, I had the same thing happen with the brand new tank I set up, which was the Pearlweed 65-gallon. Turned green on me because I was dosing CO2 and fertilizer really heavy. The tank, the gravel wasn't, didn't have nutrients in it, so I was compensating. Water went green. I put in like a green killing machine type of device for like $30. Cleaned it up over like 4 or 5 days. It hasn't come back. It's good. Didn't change any settings. I just knew new tank, not stable, not as balanced. Happens. All right. Please talk about what to feed flagfish once all the major algae is gone. Well, good news is they'll eat about anything. Any fish food I find, I don't find that they have to eat vegetarian or anything. So normal foods. And yeah, I've never had a problem. They're fairly, in my opinion, they start breeding once they get happy if you give them a lot of protein and stuff. And but yeah, they're kind of a scavenger, and I guess maybe that's most scavengers or most algae eaters are scavengers. So snails, plecos, Siamese algae eaters, flagfish. Most of these are actually, there's opportunistic feeders. Hey, that's food. I can eat it. I will. So a lot of plecos actually eat majority of proteins and stuff like that out in the wild. Wood fiber, if they're eating on trees, anything they can get their mouths on. And so they just happen to eat algae because they're like, hey, no food's around right now. There's algae. I'm gonna eat that. I'm opportunistic. I will eat it. Now there are some that become more specialized, like ottos. They're more specialized, but they're still opportunistic. They'll eat biofilm. They'll eat the tiniest little pieces of algae. They'll eat brown algae and green algae as long as they're flat. But they don't really see the proteins. Their mouth's not really built for taking in proteins, and they don't find it in the wild. But maybe they're finding enough biofilm, So sometimes we get studies that analyze the guts of an otocinclus. And they go, hey, I've never found one with protein. Might be because there's algae everywhere in nature, right? Maybe in our home aquariums, there is a little bit of protein. Like they'll eat it if they're starving. And I think we'll see that in, some of the foods we feed. They don't take to our foods very well, but a lot of our foods aren't being delivered in a way an otocinclus likes to eat. They like to get kind of slimy stuff off of surfaces. And most times we're just dumping some stuff in. And so the rasping motion isn't, we're not really catering to the rasping motion. Okay. Best tank setup for a kissing gourami? They get fairly bulky. I would say at least 75 gallons, and yeah, maybe a pair. I don't know. I myself am not huge on that fish, so I hesitate to be like, yeah, get a group of 6 to manage the aggression. But do know that all the kissing, that's how cichlids fight. And so they're just an aggressive cichlid. And I would use at least 75 gallons, most likely. All right. How do you go about telling a friend that their fish shouldn't live in a bowl without being rude? I don't think that's possible. Yeah, I don't think it is. Most people would say like, "Oh, I like the brutal truth," and then secretly they'd stop talking to you. I would say my one of my biggest things that I believe in this hobby at least, and a lot of life really, is that um, people aren't ready to hear the truth until they're asking for it. And even then, half the time, they actually don't want the truth. They want to be told something that they thought was true. So the best way that I don't think you tell them, I think you show them. You invite them over to your house, and your goal is to get them excited of like, wow, this 20-gallon tank is awesome. Look at all the things you're doing. I want to do things. And then they'll naturally, hopefully, want to upgrade. But, telling someone that, hey, that shouldn't live in that bowl, most times you might find they don't even want that fish. It got gifted to them, someone moved out, left it to them, whatever it is. Sometimes there are people that are like, oh, I'm doing the best, this is the best way. But you're likely to ruin a friendship by telling people all the time how they do stuff wrong. So if they're asking, if they said, what could I do better about this? You have a door to walk through and have a conversation. But if you just all of a sudden unleash like, oh, it's a waterfall, like I've been waiting to yell at you for a year about how bad this is, that is not going to go over well. And in fact, it was funny. We saw Zenzo found old pictures, and his first tank was a vase with a betta in it and some bamboo growing out of the top. And honestly, it was a pretty big vase. And the fish did well for a very long time. It was his first aquarium, right? Now he's got a whole fish room and all of that, and anyone can take it to where they want to go. But, um, I could also argue that maybe if I had a betta in a 20-gallon tank that I just ignored, and it's like, yeah, whatever, it's living over there, I could argue it has a worse life than living in, let's say you live in Hawaii, and you've got this vase with some plants growing out of the top, and you play with it every day. It's stimulating. You're going, oh, I'm netting out mosquito larvae outside, feeding that today, hatching out baby brine today. Now I'm going to feed it. Now I'm giving it some frozen bloodworms. Today's pellet day. Like, I believe the majority of what makes pets successful is the investment of the pet owner, right? I could go buy the best dog food, the best dog leash, the best dog collar, the best dog kennel, the best dog training. I could spend, let's say I spend $20,000. I could still be a horrible dog owner by just going, I don't walk my dog. I just, I feed him like every 3 days. He's fine, right? So majority of it comes down to the human effort when it comes to animals and really everything, right? You can buy your way through some things, but some of the best plant keepers in the world, it's just because, they're interacting with that plant every day. They're learning about it. They're going, ooh, yeah, it was a little cold today. I noticed the plant leaves were a little bit different than they were yesterday. All of these things that money won't buy you. You can read a book, but just because I read a chapter on how to do brain surgery doesn't mean I'm a brain surgeon. So most things I think come down to time spent. There's the 10,000 hours to become a master on things idea. And I believe that to some degree, but just because I sit in front of my aquarium for 10,000 hours doesn't mean I'm good at building a filter or cleaning a filter or any of those things. But I'm much likely to be closer than someone who's never seen an aquarium, right? So I do think a lot of things that are seemingly incorrect can be made up with effort. And but one of our human traits is most of us, myself included, we will project onto others our level of effort. So if I say things like, oh, Bristlenose Pleco is super easy to breed. They're very easy for me to breed. They take very low effort. I project that onto people. Something that's very difficult to do for me, I project that onto other people. Oh, that's going to be super hard for you to accomplish, right? The reality is you got to look at motivation, you got to look at skill level, you got to look at time, and how bad do they want it? If they want it 10 times more than I do, they're probably going to be more successful than I was with it. So, I don't go out of my way to approach people and say, hey, you're doing it wrong. I've got my new hairdresser has a tank, and when she asks me a question, I try and make it better. And maybe this is a great example, actually. So I'm going to this new barber, and they had a fish tank. It's got some African cichlids in it, 75 gallons. They got it from a customer a few years ago. And, it's what I would consider a little bit rough shape. Needs some cleaning, needs better lighting, needs maybe better filtration. We're, mixing some fish that it's working, but yeah. But I don't go in there and just go, hey, here's all the things you're doing wrong. You've mixed two different lakes. This is mostly herbivore fish. This is a carnivore. This one's predatory. This one, she got the standard, giant normal Placostomus in there that she loves dearly, which is great. Great pet. Take care of it. And so that she watched the video on how to gravel vac. Mind blown, right? Like, wait, that makes it so much easier. And so now she's more invigorated with her aquarium, cleaning it a little bit more. It's starting to look better. Right? And she wants to know, like, what are all the other things I could be doing? And I go, well, honestly, I believe the first thing you should do is continue with the gravel vac and get better at that, learn about that. I also taught her about territories, the African cichlids, getting some plants in there, even if they're fake, to break up line of sight, because the rainbow shark never got to leave the filter intake tube because it would just get beat on. Now it can roam around. And I'm like, look, marinate with these two concepts, right? Learn it. And I use analogies for everybody. And I said, look, imagine you got your pair of scissors you're cutting my hair with yesterday, and you cut my hair. That doesn't mean you know everything about cutting hair. It just means you understand the concept. Now you got to practice it. Same thing with gravel vacuuming. You did it once. You can get better. There's skill to it. There's tricks. There's things to learn. Same with setting up territories for the fish. And when you're comfortable with that skill set, bring on a third skill set. When you're comfortable with those three skill sets, bring on a fourth skill set. And that really will build a foundation to grow upon, because there's some things like understanding why these fish are more aggressive and why they shouldn't have these diets. Some of it can be solved with, trying to feed this way, and you can, create some line of sight blocks. You can do this, you can do that. But, if you try to teach someone everything all at once, it comes off as an attack for a lot of people. A lot of people get overwhelmed and they shut down. And, it might be, sometimes people ask the question, how can I make this better? And the answer is so much work, or they're going, well, I don't have time. I'm a student. I have a kid. I have a job. I have all these things going on. I don't have the time to make that happen, so I'll just do nothing. So, I would wait till there's a door open, or invite them over, have them enjoy your aquariums and go, oh, that's how I got in the hobby. I had a friend, I'd go over his house all the time. He had a 72-gallon bow front, and I would always see a planted tank, lots of Java ferns and Anubias. That's pretty much all it was, and lots of tetras and stuff. And after like a year or two, I'm just like, wow, the thing's so cool. I literally remember just thinking, like, that's neat. I don't know anything about it, but that's neat. Looks cool. And then I started asking, how much work does it take? And almost none, because he had a lot of plants and that kind of stuff. And that was my journey in when I was ready. Whereas if we were hanging out for a month or two and he's like, you got a separate aquarium, I love them, I probably would have pressed back too much and said, never. So wait till the person's wanting to, seek that corrective action. Well, I shouldn't even say corrective, take that next step, because they don't know it's a corrective action yet. I feel it's really hard to advise someone because I'm accusing them of animal abuse, but I don't want the fish to suffer. Well, my biggest challenge there, Abby, what makes you the person that can judge whether a fish is being abused? I think a lot of us don't have that. I don't have that. And I like to put it in different perspectives. If you see a Great Dane living in an apartment as you walk by, you're thinking, that's not very fair to that dog. a studio apartment for a Great Dane, or replace it with like a sheep herding dog or another very active breed, which Great Danes aren't active breeds, but they're big, right? Like in the snapshot, that's unfair. But maybe in the macro, like, wait, you take your dog for 9 walks a day? Every weekend you go camping? So you're not even at your studio apartment. You camp from Friday afternoon to Sunday night, and you're in nature the entire time, and you're doing all of these things to enrich your dog's life. You're changing the food, you're giving him complex toys, and doing all of this. How do we even know that's even better or worse than another situation? And so everything is perceived, right? If you rewind hundreds of years, we kept things in very small boxes. Then we kept everything in big boxes. And then now we're going back to small boxes and nanos, right? And the reality is, compared to the wild, I'm going to use a betta. I don't know what fish this is, but we're just going to use bettas. Compared to the wild of, let's say, okay, it's a 100-meter square rice field, right? Versus a 55-gallon aquarium, so, 4 feet, versus 20-gallon aquarium, 2 feet, versus nano 7-gallon tank, 1 foot, versus like a 1-gallon tank. In comparison to in the wild, all of them are horrible, right? And so really, I think a lot of it comes down to the care. Could I keep a pretty active and healthy betta in a 1-gallon? 100%. Breeders do it all the time. Show like award-winning fish, people that are judging it by the harshest standards you can come up with. And you're like, wait, that thing lived 85% of its life in a 1-gallon container? And then you'll meet people that they have a betta in a 55 and it looks terrible. Right? So I think we always think that we know a lot because we spend a lot of time, and just because we spend a lot of time on something doesn't mean we're good at it. Like, I've mowed my lawn a lot. I'm not very good at it though. Like, I still got tons of weeds. I routinely go, oh man, I cut into the lawn there. Oh, I just hit a rock. Like, I'm a lazy mower. I'm not good at it. I've mowed a lot of lawns in my life, but I'm not good at it. And so I want to make sure that people step back and go, should I even be judging this? That's like, do I have the expertise? And then if I think I do, what are the expertise that would be needed to judge it? And the reality is, we spend a lot of time focusing on the fish and the environment of the fish, and almost no time thinking about the owner of the fish, right? Or the pet. Because you can make up a lot of things. You can make up a lot of things with a lot of love and care that can't really be made up in, a neglected 55. I could say that's worse than a 1-gallon in a breeder scenario, getting live foods 4 times a day, getting carted to flare and do that, making sure that we're building body size correctly, we're not feeding too fatty of foods, we're not doing all of these. It's kind of 6 in one hand, half down the other. Like, I don't know which one's actually better. Now, would you say well, clearly it's better to be a 55-gallon with the betta breeder and doing all these great things? And then where does it stop? Well, clearly it's better to have 300 gallons, 900 gallons, 1,500 gallons. Only the wild, right? So at some point, we just have to go, hey, these are the parameters in front of me. If they're having a problem, could we help them? Yeah, we could. You can try. That's all you can do. You can try. If they ask for help, you can try. If they're not asking for help, you can offer support. You can show them what you're doing, and you'll get a lot more enjoyment. If they, the enjoyment for you might go up tenfold if they change that aquarium. But it might go down for them. They might go, oh, so much work to clean this. I don't understand how this 20 gallons working. They might actually leave the hobby, which might be good for the fish, depending on conditions, might be horrible for the fish. They might go to a different owner that's even worse. Who knows? So my biggest thing, try to help people that are asking for help, offer insight. Here's how I do it, right? If my neighbor comes up to me and says, how do you mow a lawn? I go, well, here's the way I do it. I'm not very good at it, but I buy the biggest lawnmower I can get. I mow it pretty low, so hopefully I kill it. I don't have to mow it very much more. Kind of looks crappy. I wait till the weeds get high enough where I'm like, ooh, that looks bad. All those dandelions. All right, I better mow again. But I'm not going to tell them like, well, I'm pretty much a professional because I mow a few acre lawn every week. Pretty good at it. No, instead I just go, this is the way I do it. I'm lazy. I'm not big on my lawn. Most of our lawn now is getting turned back into non-lawn. We're gonna have a little bit of lawn, but of the acres we're putting in trees and ferns and stuff. We're only doing natives. Sidetrack tangent. But because I don't like maintaining the lawn, and I'd much rather see nature. I want to see more bunnies. I want to see more deer. I want to see bees, even though bees hate me. All of these things. And lawns, they don't cater themselves to that. Honestly, what breaks my heart about mowing my own lawn, I let the grass get a little bit tall. Let's say I'm out of town for a couple weeks. When I come back, it's a bloodbath because all the frogs that have made it in the pond and everything are all in this grass. And Katie will go through and just save as many frogs she can. She might go, look, we got 182 frogs. And then I go mow it, and I still killed 23 of them. And I feel horrible. And even though I'm stopping every time I see one, like, come on, little buddy, get out. Get to the short grass that I've already mowed. I know that I'm the bringer of death every time I mow the lawn. And so I'm like, okay, well, what if I could make 2/3 of my lawn into great habitat for all these live animals? Hopefully the 1/3 that's left, there's less frogs and other things I could run over. And like every second time I mow, I kill a snake. No matter, and I'm laser locked on, like, don't want to kill anything. So, yeah, it makes me sad every time I mow because, man, I really hate when stuff dies. Especially when it's at my hands. Not in my hands, like I'm not killing it, but like, on one hand, I'm like, vanity, I should mow my lawn, it looks terrible. And on the other hand, I'm like, but by mowing it makes the habitat worse for the animals. And really, I care about animals more than I care about my neighbors. So now, this year we're finally doing something about it, putting in stuff that I won't have to mow. And all the grass, we put down seed, and I don't know, maybe it wasn't right to do clover and that kind of stuff. It hasn't started coming up yet, but like in April, we're going to do it again, try to change it to only meadow so that I'm mowing it like once a year. Can I discuss the use of a monoshrimp compared to the use of snails in an aquarium? Do they do the same job, so to speak? Yeah, I think so. They're both scavengers. I think the big thing is they're different size. Something, a round snail versus an elongated shrimp can go into different holes. They eat slightly different. A snail can take a beating from a fish more than a shrimp can, kind of. But yeah, I mean, they're part of a cleanup crew, is what I call them. But I think cleanup crew is probably not fair to them. Like, I love watching them on a shrimp. I love watching snails. I love watching fish too. And they're in there and they're part of my ecosystem. But I don't just go in and be like I wouldn't keep cherry shrimp unless they cleaned. Like, no, cherry shrimp are dope. I wouldn't say like, oh, I wouldn't keep a mono shrimp if they didn't clean. Like, no, they're just quirky little creatures. I don't go out of my way to take them out. Like if I moved a plant and a shrimp goes in, I'm going, sweet, now I got shrimp in this tank too. Sounds great. So, placed an order on February 16th. It still isn't here. I ordered some crypt parva, and I'm worried they're going to be total mush by the time they get here. What should I do? Probably nothing, Jonathan. You wait till they show up, and if they're total mush, we will refund your money. I mean, I could tell you, harass your local post office, but probably if they're already delayed, they're not necessarily Johnny on the spot. And for me personally, both business and personally, interacting with any of the carriers, whether it's FedEx, UPS, USPS, when something is delayed or missing, has just been an irritating experience for me because they're basically like, yeah, I don't know where it is. And I go, yeah, me either. What can you do? And then we go, yeah, there's nothing we really do. Let's just wait. And you go, oh, all right. I waited on hold for 22 minutes to hear just to wait more. All right. And that's unfortunately the way the system's built. All we can really do is wait. And if something doesn't go right, we'll make it right. That's on us. It's our job to get plants there to you. I will let you know though that I did say that we would refund your money because we are no longer selling Crypt Parvas. So that's why we won't be able to send you more, unfortunately. So that's going to be like a double whammy. You'll be extra disappointed, like they came mushy and I don't get them. And unfortunately, we'll be like, yeah, we don't sell them anymore. And it's mostly just because people, the unrealistic expectations, not that they don't ship well or anything, that's fine. It's that they plant them and they're like, hey, it's been 6 months, they're not growing. It's like, no. It grew one leaf. It's doing what it does. It grows real slow. That's the lure of it, though. Growing super slow, once it's carpeted out, means very, very low maintenance, which is awesome. All right, let me grab a couple more questions. Have I noticed the Aquariumcoop heater building air inside the top from evaporation? Okay. Causing it to read the wrong temp. Are drill holes an easy fix? I haven't. That being said, now that I've basically been done testing the heaters, I only run one. Let me make sure that's true. I only run one in my fish room. Still working fine. But I don't know. Let's see. Air inside from evaporation. So are you saying that like the heater's higher in the water column, water evaporates, some air gets in there, and then you fill the tank back up? In general, I recommend heaters go as low as possible in aquariums. It eliminates so many oops, water got too low, oops, I hit it. Like I run them really low, but I feel like what I would be doing, and maybe you've already done all this, I'd turn it upside down. Maybe I'd unplug it and just like, hey, can this air get out of here? That's what I would be trying. But I would as low as possible because I don't like anything being exposed. So I run intakes low. I run heaters as low as I can, air things as low as I can. Because if I'm ever doing something like maybe I'm really catching a lot of fish or moving decorations, and I want to make sure like if my air thing is this high, which someone asked me that the other day, and I thought that was so weird. They're like, can I have it right at the surface? And I was like, I mean, that's the least efficient way to run it, I guess. I want it down low so that while I'm doing everything, most of my things are still working. Hopefully filters, hopefully air, hopefully heater, all that still happen at the very lowest levels while I'm working on stuff. When you have stuff some higher, you sometimes you miss it. You go, oh, I burned out that heater. It was running really, it was high. I didn't notice till I heard the sizzle. Or, oh, I didn't realize it was going to take me this long. Or what always happens to me, so I'm doing something, should only take 10 minutes, and then something happens. Like, oh, no, there's an emergency, or someone came to talk to me. And then pretty soon it's been 42 minutes. And I go, oh, those fish they need oxygen. So I just make it a practice. And this kind of came from the store, was always plan like a minute from now, you'll have to walk away from that tank for a few hours. If you plan everything that way, you'll run into very little problems. So that I do. I try to go, well, what's going to happen if I have to walk away? So that's what I would do. I wonder why my highlighted comment was skipped. I'm sure it's because I'm angry at you. No, it's because I don't know your question. What's your thoughts on H2O2 dosers like salting oxidator? No idea. I don't think that product exists. Let me see if I can Google it. Whenever I skip someone's question, it's because it's not the question directly in front of me. It's kind of like when I'm at a show and there's 7,000 people in a weekend and they're like, why didn't you take me out to dinner? And I'm like, well, I took out 4 people out of 7,000 and you weren't standing in front of me when I asked Enzo like, hey, are we going to dinner? And then I didn't turn and go, hey, you guys want to come? It's not intentionally. I don't go out of my way to alienate people. Let me see this thing. I'm looking at this thing. Increase oxygen levels in shrimp and fish aquariums. To me, this just looks like we're adding hydrogen peroxide, which people have been doing that for years. I know people have done it, pouring it straight into their tank if they have like low oxygen for discus. Let me read through this. Contains oxidator solution and, of course, instruction sheet using a patented method. They produce normal and activated oxygen in the aquarium by means of oxidator solution and special ceramic catalysts. The activated oxygen decomposes particularly putrid matters and toxicants, and thus essentially improves well-being of fish and plants. Pure oxygen created by the oxidator is mostly immediately dissolved in water so that there is hardly any bubbles produced. Due to the oxidator's oxidizing capacity, the water quality will be improved and harmful contaminants in the water will be neutralized. And in the summer, it is effective at fighting algae. I wonder why only in the summer. Weird. The benefits of adding hydrogen peroxide to an aquarium in cases of acute oxygen deficiency, water putrefaction, and water turbidity have been known for a long time. Yeah. So, in my experience, I've played with some hydrogen peroxide. Yes, I've sprayed it on rocks and wood to kill algae and things. And to me, I don't know that it is good at necessarily detoxifying water. There have been some angelfish breeders that use it to keep fungus at bay a little bit on eggs, but it's very specific dosing and temperamental. To me, this is kind of like too good to be true. If it worked, everybody'd be doing it. Two, it's kind of like potassium permanganate, where it will oxidize like everything, and done perfectly, there's some improvement maybe, but done incorrectly, disastrous. So with this thing, my verdict would be, having not used it, so I'm speaking from non-experience, so that's the first strike against me right there. I don't think it's going to make a big difference in an aquarium. I've tested other things. I don't anything that's add a chemical, fix your aquarium from like a mold and that kind of standpoint, I've never found one that works. I've tested lots of them. I want one to work. And that's the thing. I think people like, Corey's just poo-pooing it. Like, if there's anybody that has something to gain from this, it would be me. Could you imagine, like, yeah, I put a device in each of my aquariums at the store. We don't clean aquariums anymore. Amazing. Oh, it cost me $500. Great. Saves me $2,000 a week in maintenance fees. But I unfortunately think, yeah, there are uses. And I've used it on my aquariums even the last few weeks with hydrogen peroxide. That being said, I don't think in this use case, I think a lot of it is, like, if I need oxygen, airstone, no problem. So the other part of, like, will it kill bacteria? Sure. Will it do it in like that? I don't think so. I think if you sprayed it, sure. But I think that's a different application. Let's see. Are ferts the best way to raise nitrates? I'm having a hard time getting above 5 parts per million for my planted tank. No, I think, well, the best is going to be what's up, for you. I like to feed lots more food. If I just need nitrates for some reason, which rarely would I, lots of extra food. But, if you're testing your water and you're testing iron and potassium and phosphates and all those are good, and it's just nitrates, a lot more food. But probably what you're seeing is, if you're only testing nitrates, you're probably low on some other stuff too. And then, yes, fertilizer would be the best way to do that. Another way you could just dose only nitrogen. But at that point, I just like to feed my fish more. That being said, if it was so much, like maybe your fish are already like, oh God, we're going to explode, and you couldn't feed more because you've got one guppy in a 100-gallon tank, then yes, fertilizer would be the way I would go. I'm building a 6-gallon tank for my betta. Which filter should I buy? I would run like a small sponge filter. That's what I would do. Simple, easy, get a battery backup, power goes out, still easy. That's what I would do. You can do a mini hang on back, but I just do a little sponge filter. Aren't frozen brine shrimp just nutritionless cells and polluting liquid protein since they burst at freezing? No, not if they're done correctly. Flash freezing and stuff like that. Like, so I can use bloodworms as an example. If you feed Hikari bloodworms, they feed out pretty darn clean. You go to other brands, and the way that they freeze them, a lot of them do explode, and they feed real messy. So the right flash freezing process should not have the problem that you've explained there of being nutritionless. So, which, by the way, in my opinion, San Francisco Bay has the best brine shrimp, second by Hikari, and then I haven't. Well, like those gumdrops and crap. Those things are so bad, in my opinion, that it's been a long time since I fed them. Will CO2 lower pH enough to slow down decomposition of things in my aquarium in the long term? I don't know that answer. I have no idea. I'm sure scientifically it's like, yeah, it should. And then there's like, I don't know, you get pH so low, stuff starts dying. You can get pH so low that bacteria won't survive. And at that point, you might be like, yep, look, it's totally stifling growth while killing other things. So the parameters are going the wrong way, like in the parameters I wanted to see. Can I talk about crushed coral? Does it completely dissolve in your filter? And does it raise the pH above 7? It can raise the pH above 7. Crushed coral basically, in my experience, never completely dissolves, at least in my hobby, right? So in my hobby, maybe a tank's got it for 5 years before it needs to move or something. I've never seen it dissolve all the way. I've seen it get smaller, but not dissolve all the way. A lot of times you've got minerals that are more available, kind of the outside, and as that gets eaten away in the first 6 months to a year, it leaves a much harder exoskeleton that can dissolve, but it dissolves at a much, much, much slower rate. So when it comes to changing pH and stuff, if your pH was 6 and you have crushed coral, it might go, ooh, it went to 6.5 overnight. But then the next day it might go, oh, it's 6.5 still. And then 2 days later, okay, it's finally 6.6. 3 days later, 6.7. A week later, 6.8. 5 weeks later, 7. 4 months later, 7.2. So as the water becomes less acidic, it dissolves slower, which means it raises the parameters less. Also, depending on how much you have, that outside that's easier to digest, you might start running out of that. So the one that I've stuck to, and I stick to in my business and at home, is 1 pound of crushed coral mixed into the substrate, which is a slower dissolving method, per 10 gallons of water. Served me very well at different water types and different tank sizes and everything. Where if you take that same pound, you put it in a filter, it's going to work a lot faster. You got water going through it. It's going to use that easily digestible stuff faster, which can be good, but maybe, you hit your peak at like a month, and then every day it starts going down, and we as hobbyists, we don't change it often enough. And so we might go, oh, we need to change it every month, and we forget. So I like to leave it in the gravel because I can go like a year or more before needing to like add a little bit. And when I, so maybe I have gravel at the bottom or some crushed coral at the bottom of the gravel, and then I gravel back. Well, it's sitting at the bottom. It wasn't getting, no water was really passing by it very much. So it's still like new. And then I gravel back, it tumbles, and now it's sitting on top. Well, now I got a new piece at the top that is, now dissolving. So I get like at least a year out of that system. And then maybe I go, well, it's been a year. Maybe I'll sprinkle in a couple of pounds. And that's how I run my system. And then as I'm testing, I go, oh, we're looking a little low. How long has it been since I changed water? Yeah, maybe I'll add a little bit just to make sure. And it's kind of like root tabs. Root tabs, you could put in 100 at the beginning, or you can put one in every 4 days or whatever. As long as it doesn't run out, that's kind of what you want with the crushed coral. Is it's been a while since I had some root tabs. I'm gonna add some more, and then you watch for deficiency. Oh, I tested. Ooh, my cage is low. Let me add a little more. Or ooh, my plant leaves are turning yellow. I better add a little more root tabs. I treat it like that. So Katie Storm donated 5 gifted memberships. If you want to win one of those, well, those have been given out, but if you want to win those, being engaged with the channel, subscribing, liking, commenting, watching videos longer, all of those things improve your odds, because it basically looks at a score. Maybe a like is worth 10 minutes, maybe a comment's worth 10 minutes, and then watching a video for an hour, okay, it's an hour and 20 minutes. And it basically just ranks you and goes, hey, gave those 5 people, who's the next 5 highest? And who, it keeps doing that. So the more you engage, the more likely you are to win a free one. And hopefully after you win a free one, you become a member long term, because you go, whoa, these talks are amazing. That talk last weekend was amazing. How well does aragonite mix into the lapis luster sand? Does it look obvious? I have soft Seattle water, need to buffer it, and I want it to look natural. Aragonite dissolves crazy slow in my experience, so I don't recommend aragonite. The crushed coral, depending on the crushed coral, which sounds weird, but there's different coarsenesses, blends in really well. And there is a mix of that. It's Carib Sea, Ivory Coast, I believe. Let me Google that. Carib Sea, Ivory Coast. Yeah. So Carib Sea, Ivory Coast is my favorite African cichlid substrate. And to do it on the cheap, I would make it myself with lapis luster and crushed coral. Now on Amazon here, I can see that a 40-pound bag or a 20-pound bag is $40. You might be able to do better at a local fish store. But that is my favorite. I might even say, if money was no object, and if it was cheap, I would only use that. Man, I love that substrate. But too often, there's not that much in stock at the wholesaler, so I buy it all for a project, and yeah, we always run out the store, like our own store. So, but yeah, look for Ivory Coast, Carib Sea, Ivory Coast. I really like that substrate for everything. Planet tanks, African cichlids, like, man, I love that substrate. But I just make my own with crushed coral. I mix it in. That being said, I do like gravel with crushed coral a lot. So that sand with it definitely in my top 5 probably. Oh wait, I clicked off the wrong screen. I was like, where? I was working off a list and I lost it. Have I seen the creator at Cowfish? His eel cave he built in an old underground water cistern? I haven't seen that. No, I don't know. I don't watch a whole lot of YouTube, which probably seems crazy, but I'm busy. I got to make YouTube. My chili rasboras are always hiding in my 30-gallon tank. Their tank mates are some Amano shrimp and octopus. What does that mean? Like octopus the plant? Oh, I bet it's autocorrected to autosynclus. How can I get them to come out more? Yeah, maybe adding more. So what I mean by that is if you got 12, they might just be hiding. If you had 30, maybe they're out and about because they're all the way around. Adding something possibly like a honey gourami, something that's going to be more out and about. A lot of times, small fish, they get more confident when they see other fish out. So if there's that big fish out there or more of their own kind, they go, hey, nothing's eating them, I'm probably okay. So it's probably what you got going on right now. You also might look at the tank setup overall. If you have a clear background and clear sides, it might feel like they're in the open and they're trying to hide. Sometimes if you put some construction paper on the sides and the back, they might go, oh, we're in this like cave area, I'm not out in the open. All right, let me, do what I'm going to do. All right. I'm going to play with my lighting some more. It's a little dark in here. The day I was working on this like on Friday and it was brighter outside. It was that nice sunny day and I thought I had the lighting dialed in, but a little dark. I'll work on it. What food to feed discus to get them to breed and to raise discus? I'm gonna tell you something's gonna blow your mind. Anything. Like, if you have discus that are willing to breed and they eat, they will breed. If you have discus that are not willing to breed and you feed them the world's best food, they're still not going to breed. So making them compatible pair, the right tank setup, the right temperatures, they're happy, they're not scared, they're getting enough food. And from there, pick a discus food. Like, oh, I'm feeding them bloodworms. Oh, I'm feeding them this discus food. Any of them are going to work. You could make a case for which one will give me the maximum egg production. Sure, maybe. But for the most part, the food type is not the difference between breeding and not breeding. Could be the amount, could be water quality, could be environment, could be are they even compatible. All of those things matter much more than which specific food. Like Dean uses a lot. He'll use frozen brine, frozen bloodworms, live baby brine. He'll use krill flake. He'll use super expensive mushroom food that's like $50 a can. He tries a lot of different things. And the reality is, any decent food with well taken care of fish will breed. You could do freeze dried worms, right? And like it's not so much the one food as it is the total ecosystem you got going and the amount of food. Which you should be able to go, okay, that's good. I've got food. I've got an ecosystem. I just got to keep working on it. Like, it should be a relief to go, okay, yeah, I got the tools I need. I just got to keep working at it. Half of that is paralysis of like, I'm trying to do this thing. Am I not winning, or am I not doing this because I got the wrong equipment? Knowing you get the right equipment makes it easy. Okay, I just got to get better. Okay, I can focus on that. All right. Do bettas need an air pump for oxygen, or can they survive without one? They can technically survive without one, but an air pump isn't just oxygen. Usually it's going to help oxygenate the bacteria in the tank, which bacteria uses the majority of oxygen in a tank. So I would say, well, how are you delivering oxygen for the bacteria? 2, you're going to get flow, causes things to move around. So if you're dosing fertilizer for plants, you need that to go around. And it'll help waste settle in places and not settle necessarily just on plant leaves. So does the fish physically need it to live? No. Will you get a lot of peripheral bonuses from doing it? Yeah, I think so. One of the books you talked about in a previous live stream going on sale, well, the brokers are still working out how to get it across. So my guess is couple months. Books are going to go on a real slow boat to get over here. Yeah, so hopefully a couple months or less. Hopefully before I go over there. I'm going to go over there in summer, or I want to. I guess I don't know I am yet. Listening from my hospital bed. I've been in there since Wednesday. I've got pneumonia, and you're saving my sanity. Well, I'm lucky I haven't had to be in that situation, but I'm glad you're enjoying. We're working on it right now. We're hoping to share it in a couple weeks. Like I think I posted about it in the Facebook group. I don't know what to call it. A center. We're working on a help center, and that should break out a lot of the videos and articles, because we're seeing more and more, like after 10 years of doing things, and lots of fans have been with us for a long time, it's, hey, you did a thing the one time and I can't find it. And every week we release more videos, it gets more lost. Every week we release more articles, it gets more lost. And so we're trying to make a resource that will make things much easier to find again, called the Help Center. And we're hoping to unveil the first part of that in a few weeks. And so long term, it won't be right at the beginning, I don't think, but long term, I would love to have one is like, hey, look, I could watch live streams from the first one to the last one. Because I know there's, like if you're anything like me, eventually you get to a point where you're like, oh, great, that has 900 episodes. I'm gonna start watching that because then I won't have to be like trolling Netflix. Like, what am I gonna watch? I just want to work and listen to something. What am I looking for? If you find a nice long series that's like halfway decent, you're like, cool, just the next one of those for a long time. And so you could nerd out on fish knowledge for way too long, and you'll be a pea puffer master because over all the episodes, you're like, wow, I have learned about pea puffers 242 times. Pretty much expert. Is it possible to breed shrimp for profit in 20 liters? Yes. Do I think you'll be doing it? No. That's not a slight at you. Look at like the German breeder that we visited. His tanks were like 7-ish gallons, so that's more than 20 liters. But some of his shrimp would sell for thousands of euros because he would invent new shrimp. Now, do I think you'll be doing that? Probably not. You might. You might go, that's exactly what I'm doing, Corey. You don't know. I was asking because I have 400 20-liter tanks, and that's exactly what I'm doing. In which case, it's going to be awesome to watch you do it. But could you make some more shrimp? Could you really enjoy it? Totally. Could you even like, sweet, I made some and I gave some to a friend? Yeah. But when you're going like profiting, it's kind of like, Corey, could you set up an aquarium store at the end of your road that could turn a profit? Like, yeah, probably, as long as I only open Saturdays noon to 1:30 and I pay my neighbor kid to man it or something. But then there's like, oh, could you just do a local store in your local town? Like, yeah, that makes a lot more sense for the time and effort. And I think that's where you're at with that 20-liter of like, could it be done? Yeah, but profit if you're if at the end of 2 years you're like, I made 13 cents. That's not really anything to write home about. Like, it would be profitable, but I think in your mind you're probably going, yeah, would it make me like 50 euro a month so I could build my hobby? Like, yeah, that might be pretty tough to get out of the 20 liters. So starting with a little bit bigger of a vessel might get you more realistic expectations that you're looking for. But maybe you are. Your 13 cents exactly what I was thinking. Can people who bought a membership today get gifted a membership so they don't pay for their next month? I don't believe that exists. To be fair, I don't know, but I don't think that's how it works. I would totally watch a chronological playlist of all the live streams. I do it a little bit and just go, man, how did I have such bad sound during that time? Like at the beginning, I kind of get it. And then there's times where I had to move or I was busy or like something in my system would break. And I'm just like, oh, man, that was rough. I don't know how people stuck through that. The information hopefully was good enough. And some of the big hits on the live streams we've had have been where video quality and sound quality was terrible, but sometimes you make magic and you can't recreate it, so it lives on. I always love doing water changes with Corey talking in the background. Everyone have a great tank day. Yeah, I need to find how I get I listen to music while I'm doing it, but I used to listen to podcasts and stuff, but now since I do the live streams, it's kind of like, that's just like I'm at work. And I'm trying to get away from that. Like, I just want to play with fish. So I got to figure out what my jam's going to be. Maybe it'll be like, I don't know, something on house. Well, I'm getting into the weather a little bit and then native plants in my yard. So maybe I'll find a podcast. I mean, I like on Reddit, I want more content out of like, I think the Reddit's wild gardens. So I'm always like, man, in the winter, people don't post enough about their wild gardens. And I'm getting stupid with, my wife doesn't even know yet. I ordered a heated bird bath, I think on Friday. It'll be here Monday. I'm looking forward to installing it. So yeah, I'm going full down the nature rabbit hole of like, you know what? It's freezing outside. We need warm water so I can watch birds. That's what I need. What live foods do I recommend for African cichlid, peacocks, and haps like lemon jakes and Camperchromis ceruleus? I don't know Camperchromis. Is that Champerchromis? In my mind, I'm thinking Labiochromis ceruleus. I gotta look it up. By golly, it is a fish. Oh, it's the trout. Yeah, things get. I've kept those before. I just didn't. I always called them Malawi trout. Learn something every day. Yeah, those guys are a beast when you want to get the fry or the eggs out of their mouth. They're a two-hander because the fish gets up to 13. So it's most African cichlids you can kind of hold with one hand, hold all the fins down, and open their mouth. That guy is so long that it just gets out of control. So it's a two-hander, and then you gotta have like your wife or something open the mouth to let out the babies. But for live foods, um, so here's my hot take. In my opinion, it's very hard to overdose on live foods. So I don't worry about like, ooh, are they gonna get bloat and this and that. Um, I like a lot of mosquito larvae. It's the easiest one, at least in my area. Maybe, and again, maybe I'm because I'm projecting like maybe it's super easy in the Northwest, but 5 gallon Home Depot bucket outside, come back like I don't know 1 to 3 weeks later, you have mosquitoes or mosquito larvae. All you got to do is scoop them out with a net, feed them. Just don't neglect them way too long, and make sure you get the right size. One time, I fed a bunch of mosquito larvae to guppies and stuff, and I had a lot. I fed so many, they hatched out in my office. That was terrible. Don't do that. That's a mistake. Don't feed so much that some are close to hatching, and you're just like, why is there a million mosquitoes? Oh my, what have I done? So that was a lesson learned. Only feed like, and the thing is, I eat so much of it. It's so fun to watch, and oh, do a little more. Like, yeah, they love it. More. You can go too far when they hatch out and offer mosquitoes to your office. That's when you've gone too far. Watching birds, lawn work. Corey's joining the rest of us mature folks. Oh, I'm embracing 40. I turned 40 in April, and I couldn't be embracing it harder. I've got old man sweaters. I'm watching birds and nature and playing with fish. Yeah, I couldn't. I don't know. I pretty much if it's like, is that something somebody older than me would do? I'm like, I should do this. It just seems appealing. I don't know why. I'm gonna start. Maybe I'll start liking tea, even though I don't. But maybe I'll start liking it. Not that only old people like tea, but I would love to get that habit. Ooh, tea. It's appealing. Do not use the heated bird bath when it's freezing. You don't want them to freeze after bathing. Good to know. All the Amazon reviews, no one said that. They said the birds love it. I think the biggest perk they were saying is when everything's frozen, there's not a lot of water, and so them getting a drink is important. But good to know. I'll watch out for not doing when it's too cold. Ow, my braces just got like stuck in my lip. Dang these things. My favorite is a water sprite or Pogo stem and Stellatus octopus. Pogo for me. I like floating water sprite a lot, but yeah, if I had to choose, I'd take Pogo's pretty awesome. A couple weeks ago, Corey said people looking for the color of a betta sorority should just use other fish. What do you suggest stock to recreate that look? Guppies, platies, mollies, most live bearers. You could probably recreate it with barbs. You could probably recreate it with lots of different rasbora types. Yeah, some viable alternatives, I believe. I worry about people who are going to let the mosquitoes go too long because it could contribute to issues with local mosquito populations. Yeah. Anything can be turned into a weapon. Like, and what I mean by that is if you neglect near about anything in the world, it can cause a problem. Like, oh, if I never turn the lights off in here, aren't I killing the environment? Like, yep. If I don't plug them in right, couldn't I burn my house down? Like, yep. What I like to do is encourage people, warn them of the pitfalls I've encountered. Hey, stay on top of those mosquitoes. Otherwise, they got a lot of mosquitoes. That kind of sucks. And if they're getting value out of by feeding their fish all the time, they're more likely to be successful. Now, that being said, like let's just take one small slice of the universe, this house, right? The guy I bought it from, behind the fish room, oil was leaking into the ground. He was like that. The fish room building was a garage. He had hot rods and welding machines, and he'd do his all his oil changes and that kind of stuff. And on the back side of the garage, when the guy would do an oil change, oh, it's in a container. Let me set that back there. And then when we came to buy it, we're like, you got to clean this up. This is like a hazmat place. Like there's antifreeze, there's like every horrible thing back here and it's leaking. So we take that from leaking into the environment and we replace it with Corey. Corey's growing some mosquitoes, that fool. Lesser of two evils, right? But hopefully I stay invested in it. And I know that I could visit all my neighbors and like all of my neighbors are going to have like a bucket, a bird bath, a thing that could make some mosquitoes. Interesting little tidbit I didn't know. The best anti-mosquito thing, I guess, is dragonfly larvae, which I got 1 billion of those things in my pond. Like those things are everywhere. So maybe that's why I don't have a lot of mosquitoes down by the pond. Maybe. So, sometimes you just, hopefully, I aim to encourage and inspire, and then we'll learn more. Because maybe instead of liking making mosquito larvae, I like working on cars, and I become the guy that's inadvertently polluting the land, which I hope nobody's doing that. But yeah, everything could be taken and done incorrectly, and it becomes a problem. At some point, we have to go, well, let's hope people make an honest effort, and there's people around me that they're kiddie pools and stuff. They just sit around year round, and then they clean them out during the summer. But the other 9 months out of the year, they're mosquito factories. Good news is I want to put in bat boxes, and we're going to feed the bats. I've got mosquitoes all year. Yeah, pretty much me too. Our climate is kind of primed for those little guys. And yeah, just is what it is. I also learned, I don't know why I'm learning all this stuff, but I also learned that for attracting bugs and mosquitoes, I was going way down this nature rabbit hole here. Really, I was trying to figure out if I should change my outdoor lights, like the security lights and stuff, to red so they wouldn't impact bats as much. That's really what I was looking into. And I learned that lights that attract bugs have changed over the years. And the best to attract bugs are incandescent, the oldest type of light bulb we have. The next best is CFL, and the worst is LED. So, because they were mentioning how you could somehow in the same research I was doing, put the right bulb off, away from your barbecue and everything, and it would attract bugs. Makes sense. But it's getting harder and harder to do that because there's so many LED bulbs, and supposedly the wavelengths that make no difference to a human matter to a bug, I guess. That's what I was reading in my little bit of cursory research. So, yeah, no red lights yet. Didn't pull a trigger or anything, but I am intrigued by the towns and things that are switching to red lights for bats. Do I just net them out? The mosquito larvae? Yeah, I just grab a net, and so what happens with mosquito larvae, if you've never done it, they'll all be at the top of the water until you get close, and then they got this flight response. It's down to the water. And so with a bucket, I just kind of get a decent sized net. You go walk over there, they shoot down, and I swirl it. And the water ends up going, you just kind of hold the net, and then you lift it up, and you're like, hey, look at that, it's a bunch of mosquito larvae. And then I drip it all through the house before I had a fish room, and then all through the fish room, and I kind of hold the mosquito larvae in the net, and I kind of just and you get some, and you get some, and you get some, and know that you'll probably get like some pine needles and other little junk that have fallen in there because you're whipping the whole thing up, but totally worth it to watch the fish go nuts for some live food, I think. I've never had mosquitoes go in my mini pond on my balcony, actually. I wonder if it's because I've had so many floating plants. Could be floating plants, could be they like stagnant water, so they don't like a lot of turbulence. Um, you could, I doubt it, but they make mosquito dunks, so there's certain like bacteria that can attack them. If you ever put that in there, if you have fish in there, they'll typically eat them like faster than they can lay them. So any of those could be causing it, or maybe you've got like a, maybe they're being attracted to a different body of water or a different light or something. But yeah, for the most part, put out a bucket of water, it'll do it. Maybe, and again, it's from my experience, right? So maybe the bucket of water with chloramine, maybe they wouldn't start laying in there for like at least a month after it dissipates. Or chlorine dissipates in like 24 hours if it's aerated. So again, this is all from my perspective, like Pacific Northwest, not a lot of chlorine in the water. Put out a bucket, will make mosquito larvae. Does Aquariumcoop sell nets for shrimp that last? Need a good shrimp net. I love the nano little net. I when we did that one, I was like, this is my shrimp net. I use it all the time for shrimp. I like it because it's such a small basket that allows. I use it and I hold it like this, I guess, because if your pinky's out, the shrimp are worth more and they're higher quality. Don't know if you guys knew that, but it's kind of a thing. When I'm sorting shrimp to go, you need to go live in a different tank. You're the best one. You can go over here. You stay. That kind of stuff. I like a small net. Too big of a net, and you're like, there's 4 shrimp. Get out of there. You stay. You go. You move. So I like very small nets for doing that. I bet I could harvest from my mom's house down the road and freeze them for long-term use. Give it a try. Normal freezing, though, they might explode. I don't know. I've never frozen mosquito larvae. That's a good... I don't know why. I guess I make so many of them, but yeah, maybe freezing them works. They might explode the cells too, and they might be real messy. But I think why I don't freeze them is once you feed the mosquito larvae, the fish, you think you know your fish till you put these mosquito larvae in there, and they're losing their minds for them. And so I think it's like that. It's like giving your dog its favorite treat, where it's just like, oh my god, I think it's treat time. I'm losing my mind. Your fish start doing that over mosquito larvae. And so I think by freezing it, I'm going to lose my mind part, and then I get sad. So maybe that's why I've never tried it. But give it a try. Well, worst case, the world will make some more mosquitoes. So, if you freeze them and you go, that didn't work. Move on. I harvested so many mosquito larvae, I ran out of mosquito by midsummer. That's right. We're going to start making videos on how to maximize mosquito production. I'm so happy and grateful. Someone gave me 100 red cherry shrimp yesterday for free. Nice. I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, I feel like most people that breed shrimp will give away shrimp to nice people. I've done it so many times. Stuff that, like, if I take it to the store, like, they're easy $10 each. It's like, just take some. Because you get it where you're making more. You're like, look, let's grab you a scoopful. Here, take them. And then you make more. So it's different when it's like, okay, it's got to go to a store. It's got to be employees. But if you're just like hanging out, if you can get some other shrimp buddies, a lot of times you're going, hey, yeah, I'll give you some reds. And then, hey, when those blues get going, I wouldn't mind trying those. They're, honestly, in my opinion, breeding shrimp and snails, is this the hot take of the show? Same difficulty. At least Neos. Like, they tend to thrive at the same time. You tend to make way too many of each one, and one has a high value, and the other one is like, how do I kill them? But honestly, the shrimp, once you learn them, just like snails, it's actually a little bit of work to make healthy snails. Like, most people, shells don't look that great and that kind of stuff. But if you can make healthy shrimp, you can make healthy snails. Same kind of the same thing. Can you cap dirt with gravel, or will it leach all the same? Sand caps it a little bit better, but as far as I'm concerned, dirt, once you're, once you're into the dirt realm, you're just gonna put up with some leaching, maybe some gas bubbles coming out. When you redecorate, move a plant, you're gonna get a little bit on top, needs to settle back down. Like you're basically making that decision. Am I willing to work with the dirt or not? I am. Great. And then I use gravel. I mean, I've done it all the ways, but gravel is what I like. So, and I'll tell this every time. 1/4 inch, which is not a lot. That's like that much. 1/4 inch of soil is what I like to use. More is not necessarily better on that. It seems like it. My plants are going to love it. But the rest of your ecosystem will not love it. That's the problem. All right. Where'd my streaming window go? There it went. What am I... You guys buying my foods and my air pumps? Do that. Make sure you sync up your account so you can get the coins. Look, here's the 3-year coin. You get these coins for free when you place orders and your account has been synced and you've been members long enough. Takes a little bit to sync up, so if you've been a member for like 3 years and you just signed up yesterday, it's going to take 2 orders before you get your stuff. So just know that. Do you eventually need to remove and redo a tank if you use aqua soil? Most people that aquascape and do that, yes. It's not an infinite resource. So yeah, they're not, you don't build those tanks to be like 5-year tanks. They're more like 12 to 18 month, 2-year type tanks. So. Oh, hey, 1 year. Good job, Aiden. I got about 20 CPDs, 12 or so emerald reservoirs, and 12 neo shrimps in a handful of Java Fern for free yesterday. Some of the nice people I've met are in the hobby. I think it makes a lot of sense. And that's one of the honest reasons why I don't run the fish room as a breeding operation anymore, is you have to evaluate it of like, is this making enough money? Got to go to the store, got to sell it, got to do all of that. Where when it's just a hobby, when someone's like, oh man, I would kill to have those. I go, oh really? You're jazzed about them, huh? Here, take some home. Right? But if it's like, oh, I've invested all this money and all of this and I got to recoup it, that changes the hobby. And so I really enjoy that aspect of the hobby where most fish breeders and stuff, when you're, oh, we have a 404 error when you're trying to sync the website right now. Well, that's not good. Yell at our developers ASAP. Once you befriend someone, and that takes a while, by the way. That's not just one visit or anything normally. When you befriend another fish person that's made some fish, usually they'll give them to you, or they know it's like, I'll swap some later, whatever. Because I know a lot of people would have that kind of like, hey, Dean, can I get some of those rams? It's like, Dean would rather give them to you than sell them to you because he sells them to stores. But he's not going to do that of like, yeah, you know who Dean is, but to get to Dean's house, you already got to be his friend for the most part. So it takes a long time to get into people's homes and all that. And by the time you're a regular, I would say like, hey, yeah, we come over once a month and we talk about fish. And maybe the best example is we carpool to carpooling to your local club. That's like the best, I think. Because you got like, oh, it's a 2-hour drive. You bond. You come back. You help them put fish away. Maybe you help them bag some fish to sell. Eventually, eventually it's going to be like, I wouldn't mind getting some of those one of these days. And eventually you'll get some. It'll be great. So I love that part of the hobby. You mentioned you want to spend some more time reading. And that's a big list of books to read. Maybe you could listen to audiobooks while you do tank maintenance. I used to do that kind of a lot, actually. So, but more and more, books are just getting sold to, what is that? What's the Amazon service? Audible? I think it's Audible. And I don't want a subscription to Audible because that puts me on in my mind, I'm like, I got to listen to it. I got to get my money's worth. where some months I was like, I have no time. But like today, I read for about an hour, well, 40 minutes before I went live. So I did get some reading in. And what's weird is I won't sit and listen to a book. If I sit and listen, I just fall asleep. Tried it on planes. I can do it while I'm driving. Anything, but if I'm just like sitting at home going, instead of reading this, I'm going to listen. Or if I try to work while I listen, then I'm not consuming the information because I buy technical stuff. So I find that the physical book goes, okay, center my attention on the book. I'm learning, reading, and, if I do it too late at night, I do get sleepy. So I'm still trying to find the right, like, oh, maybe I'm going to start my day by reading. So we're going to try that next. But yeah, I am trying to read more books and, I guess, learn things. That's really all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do that every day. Learn about anything. When will Aquariumcoop be shipping to the EU? Unlikely anytime soon. Probably we'll find someone to sell over there for us. We'll ship them a giant container full and then they'll do it. That would be my guess. But when? Who knows? Uh-oh. I think I started a firestorm on Facebook with my random picture of me at my local fish store. Look at this apple snail. I've never seen one before. Yeah, apple snails, the true big apple snails are kind of amazing because I think they're illegal in all 50 states, but somehow they still show up. Like, I think even in Florida, they're illegal to be in a pet store, but legal to be at a farm. Like, how does that work? Any thoughts on collecting and keeping North American native fish? I think it can be cool. We can't legally do it in Washington, so I don't do it, but it's fun to get out there and do stuff. I think, I don't know. Some are pretty cool. That's what I would say. But anytime I've watched people do it, I watch them get bored more often than not. And I think the answer is you can go out in the wild and you can catch them, and that's fun and cool. But then you got to compare them to like, oh, look at this fish. It's the coolest thing on the planet that is at my local fish store. So I think those end up winning because they're just, oh, I got a grass shrimp out in the wild. And then you go compare it to all these really cool looking shrimp. And you're like, well, I'd actually just, cool shrimp are cool. Yeah, no duh. So it's weird. I don't know. Can you carry larger extreme pellets quantity wise, not size? Let me think. Can I carry larger extreme pellets quantity wise, not size wise? We could. So we don't because there's not savings. So how do I explain that? It basically means, like, let's say I can sell you, and this is a bad example because the bigger container will save you money, but let's say this container is $10, and then a container that's twice as big, the average consumer goes, hey, I'm buying more, I should save money. But for the most part with the extreme foods, it's like, oh, that bigger container, it's just $20. Like, there's not enough of the savings. And then the problem we find is each different product we carry and each different size takes up more physical space in the warehouse. And so if we're not making more money or saving the customer much money, because there is slight differences, like not enough. And then the other problem we run into, I think specifically with Extremes packaging, like some of their biggest things, they break the dimensions on our boxes. So something that might be like, yeah, if it fits, it ships, great, and it costs this much. If it's outside those dimensions, all of a sudden shipping is an extra $12, and no one's going to save any money. So, and then also, as prices go up, like a good example might be the Nano, right? So we sell, let me pull it up, the website's loading, Extreme Nano pellets, right? The 5 ounce, which is like kind of like this size, is $13.77 with the member discount. The 20 ounce, right? The 20 ounce is this one, $45.59. The next size up from that is like this big. That thing's gonna be like $100. And I just don't think that many people, and I could be wrong, I just don't think that many people are buying the Nano krill at $100 a shot. Now, you might be going, hey, but yeah, I want this other pellet. I get you. But it's kind of the same linear math of like, yeah, but. And then for us, because we specialize in planted community tanks so much, like let's say you wanted the cichlid pellets, like, yeah, but we already sell so few cichlid pellets. Like, if we really looked at the numbers, we might be like, you know what, we actually shouldn't even be selling the cichlid pellet like at all. I can give you a great example of that. I saw it today and I actually wrote an email about it. The Hikari Cichlid Gold. I like that food, right? But in the last 90 days, we've only sold 60 packages, right? So that's like, oh. Whereas like this nano krill pellet we've been talking about, like to give an example of just like, well, how many units are we talking here? So less than one a day, 60 in 90 days, right? Versus with the nano krill, 952, right? So that's more like that's more like 10 a day. Is that right? Yeah. More than 10 a day, where we went from less than one a day to 10 a day. So it's a 10x. And I would wager that if we looked at some other foods like, let's see if we have the cichlid pellet. We do. I'm just seeing if I have it labeled searchable easy. I gotta type in extreme. But because it's not that, like, I like the extreme pellets a lot. We just, like, if we made all our videos about cichlids and that kind of stuff, we go, hey, look, we're selling 10x as many cichlid foods. But because we don't, that's where we run into like, yeah, should we really be bringing more sizes onto this though? Yeah, let's see. Look at this one. So, like the extreme nice 1.5 semi-floating pellet, sold 231 of them. So still almost 4x of cichlid gold, right? But we only sell that in one size. And there's other things too, like so extreme nice comes in semi-floating pellets, also comes in slow sinking pellets, right? Of the slow sinking, we sold 411. So already that's like the food is the exact same makeup, but one is floating, one is sinking, like semi-floating, semi-sinking. So that's already two different things we got to manage at the store. You add, or as a warehouse, you add two sizes. Now it's 4 containers, right? You add 3 sizes, 6 containers, or 6 locations. And that's just 2 of the foods, right? And so like with Extreme, we carry 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We carry 10 different foods. And of those, most of them have at least 2 sizes, right? And so when you get into that, you start going, wait, this whole row is just extreme foods? Like, yeah, we sell a decent amount of it, but adding the third, the extra sizes, there's diminishing returns. And so we don't have enough warehouse space. So we gotta make cuts. Uh-oh. Listening is apparently not helping my water change. I've been wandering around the fish room for 5 minutes looking for my faucet adapter, and it was in my hand. It's been known to happen. I used to buy bulk food, but it's just hard to keep it fresh. I don't know if it's hard. It's work. You need like a seal a meal type of thing, keep it in the fridge or freezer and that kind of stuff. And yeah, a lot of maybe it's inflation, maybe it's COVID, maybe it's whatever, right? But more and more, there's just not a lot of savings. Like we looked into it. So the stores are loving our brine shrimp eggs. They're hatching them out and feeding their fish. Good for their fish at the store. Good for you guys. And they're going, hey, I'm going through one of these containers a week. Can I buy in bigger? And we went down the rabbit hole with our supplier, right? Can we make a bigger container? And I'm going to be 100% honest with you. If we sell it in a 1 pound thing compared to what we sell it in right now, the literal price difference to everybody, because you would think, okay, I'm going to buy 4 times as much, from 100 grams to 400 grams. The literal quote we got we'd save you 13 cents. But we'd have to have a whole nother SKU, and it doesn't make sense. Like, the problem is we have to print thousands of cans. So it would cost us more money in the beginning, and then after, like, okay, we sold 8,000 of these things, then it'd be like, okay, now we're saving the 13 cents, but we have to carry 2 product sizes, when if we just do this one, the smaller 100 grams, yes, it technically is 13 cents more expensive if you buy 4. But the operational wise, what would happen to us, we'd have to carry more. We'd probably end up spending 25 cents to carry that much more brine shrimp in that bigger thing and all of that, that it would probably increase the price. And, over COVID and stuff, the price of them tried to go up like 3 times. Each time we just go, what if we buy more? What if we buy more? What if we buy more? The first 2 times that worked. Third time it didn't work. We actually had to raise the price a little bit. And there's nothing left to squeeze on that. There's just like, man, the best eggs in the world just cost money. And, we're already buying, like the last time we bought eggs was $70,000 worth. And so maybe it's $700,000. We can't do that though. Like maybe there's some crazy magic number that will save more than 13 cents. But at a certain point, we've shaved everything that makes it still profitable for both, right? And we don't want to, we always say we would love the price to go down. We don't want to compromise on quality. We don't want any of that. Are there any ways left that we could save money? Is there bulk? Is there commitments? Is there a different package style? Is there, like, what could we do? And the answer is there's nothing left. We've optimized it as much as that can optimize. So that's where we end, and we move on to a different product going, okay, we that's as optimal as that's ever going to get without, the only way to lower the price would be make the quality worse. And we don't want to do that. We love the quality. So there you go. Just purchased for the first time online, and I've been watching for a month. Good job, Jason Armstrong. Welcome to the community. Hopefully over time you'll fall all the way into the rabbit hole, become a member, watch all the stuff, attend live events, that kind of stuff. It'll be fun. Yeah, hit that like button. Only 404 likes. It's like the 404 error on our website where you can't even sync up your account. Never-ending battle. Change one thing, another thing changes. Change that thing, this broke a thing. That broke a thing. Everything's working this week. Everything's broken next week. Love it. Has the drought and level of Great Salt Lake affected brine shrimp prices? I don't know. Our eggs don't come from that Great Salt Lake, so fortunately for us, hasn't affected us yet. Could have residual effects of, like, if they can't get our brine shrimp eggs there's more buyers. Can because I believe they're making them, like, they just make artificial, for lack of understanding, like artificial salt flats that breed brine shrimp, and then the wind and the waves just wash up the brine shrimp eggs. You collect the brine shrimp eggs, and that's the way it goes. So my phone's down to 3%. And it's 2:03. You know what that means? I mean, it's time to get ready to see Grandma. All right. I think that's it. Buy all of our stuff. I got nothing new to sell you this week, which is good. You got more time to buy my stuff. Learn about it. Love it. Video out yesterday. Video will be out again on Saturday. Another live stream on Sunday. And I'll be hanging out in the Facebook group as I do. I'll be answering questions when a video comes out like I do. And until then, think up good questions. Spend some time with your tanks. Compliment somebody else on their aquarium hobby. And maybe set up a tank for your grandma. Who knows? For today, I'm out. Got to hit the done button. And I'm working with Dean on Thursday, I think. So maybe we'll film that day. Supposed to be cutting glass and doing some other stuff. Maybe working on the turtle. We will see. All right. We'll see you later.